Hey 10th graders, in this video I just wanted to go over this short story that I wanted you to read this week. Probably this is the last story that we'll go over in literature for this year, so yay, right? I know some of you are happy about that. I was just flipping through the rest of the book to see if there was any stories that I just really loved and thought would be really good for you guys, and this was definitely one that I wanted to go over. It's one of my favorite stories for a multitude of reasons. It's the story of Daedalus and Icarus. It's on page 362 and 363. Please, if you haven't already read it, just pause the video right now and read over it very quickly. It's like a page and a half. It's not long at all, but it would be really beneficial if you could just go ahead and read it by yourself real quick, because I'm not going to, okay? I'll reference it, certain parts, but I'm not going to read the story, obviously. So, if you have read it already, then I'm going to keep going through it. I chose this story for a number of reasons. One, because it's relatable. It's something that even in today's, right now, people can read it and understand it. Has relatable lessons and things like that. Another reason is it is referenced so widely even in today. This was written hundreds of years ago. Obviously, if you look down when the guy was born, it even says he lived during the time of Christ. So this was a very long, it was written a long time ago, but even today, there are so many references to this story in modern culture. You'd be amazed. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to introduce it to you. Maybe you have heard the story of Icarus. And that's just even more emphasis to really understand it. But if you never have heard the story, consciously heard the story of Icarus, I would be amazed if you didn't hear about it more often, just simply because you know what it is. In movies, in popular music, you would not believe. I Googled it, like how often, you should go do this yourself. Google Icarus in modern culture and just be amazed at how many musical artists reference him in their songs, different movies, different other pieces of literature, video games, all of it, okay? So it's so widely referenced even in today's modern time. It is timeless, classic. That's what a classic is. It's something that is timeless. And it has timeless lessons, very specific lessons that we can take and apply to our lives even right now and today. So with that, let me just walk through the story a little bit, and of course I'll kind of go over your worksheet, so if you haven't filled it out yet, you can do that now. The author is Ovid, okay? This story is from a larger book called The Metamorphosis, which is changes and things that are changing. So that is, again, it's a larger book just about a lot of mythological creatures and stories that go through changes and things that happen to them. But I think this is interesting. I already said that Ovid lived during the time of Christ, right, when he was being born and everything. And down here in the background it says, Ovid realized that the gods and goddesses were not to be taken seriously as objects of worship. And so he, in his Metamorphosis, in his book, and the things that he wrote about, he was downplaying the gods, the Greek gods and everything. And again, that was different. In previous years, they were being lifted up and everybody's praising them. But again, it's setting the stage. God, in his divine wisdom, was using Ovid to set the stage for the real God and the real King, Jesus Christ, that was coming up even at that time. So just a way to look back at those things and understand God, of course, was working in all of it. So we got this story, and Daedalus and Icarus. Daedalus is the father, Icarus is the son, and they're on this island of Crete. They've been imprisoned there, and Daedalus figures out he's going to get off the island, right? And so it even says he turns his attention toward the unknown arts, changing the laws of nature in his own special way, and he's going to make wings for him and his son, right? Makes them out of feathers, twine, and wax, it says, just kind of laying them all together, and for all intents and purposes, it works, right? if you read the story, they're flying. They're doing the abnormal thing that humans are not supposed to do. He's getting off this island. It says at the very last line on page 362, he's talking to his son and they're about to take off, and he says, Daedalus says, not knowing he was dealing with his downfall. So he's creating this, a little bit of foreshadowing, he's creating this not knowing that this was going to be the end of his son. Now, you could go back and forth and say, well, Daedalus, it was all his fault. I don't know that I ascribe to that. There's definitely grounds to support that, but it was all Icarus's decision to do what he did. Daedalus was, we can go back, why were they even in prison on the island in the first place? That's not what this is about. But this story is about what Icarus did and the decisions he made. Okay, so let's go forward with that. So they're on the island of Crete. He makes the wings, and they're getting off the island. They're getting ready. They're about to take flight, and Daedalus gives his son some instructions, some last-minute advice, so to speak. And I'm looking on 363, kind of towards the top. It says, I warn you, Icarus, fly a middle course. Don't go too low or the waters will weigh the wings down, and don't go too high or the sun's fire will burn them. Keep the middle way. And one more thing, no fancy steering by star or constellation. Follow my lead. A lot to discuss there. I don't have time to take each one of those lines to discuss them, but there's a lot of lessons just in each one of those lines. But if I can focus on, he says, follow my lead. Okay, the story would have ended very differently had Icarus just listened to his father and done what he wanted him to do, what he, in his wisdom and understanding, knew what was right, what was going to help him. But of course he doesn't, and they take off. They're flying. They're going, and this, when I reread this, I noticed that fishermen and shepherds and plowmen were seeing them, and so just the idea that people are always watching. And you'll be remembered for the things that you do, the decisions that you make. And Icarus, for better or for worse, is ultimately remembered for his decision of flying too close to the sun. That is what he is always going to be remembered for. Others were watching and they saw, and then let's go down. Another thing I noticed, that they were close to another island. It says, Sacred Island, Daedalus and Icarus towards the left, Lepidus, visible to the right, and another island, Calamine, rich in honey. So it's like they were so close and they were right there, but the very next, and the boy thought, this is wonderful, and left his father, soared higher and higher, drawn to the vast heavens, nearer towards the sun, and the wax that held the wings melted in the fierce heat, and the bare arms beat up and down in air, and lacking oarage to hold nothing. And he's crying towards his father, and ultimately he falls into the ocean and dies, or the sea, I guess. He falls into the sea and drowns. The very last, it says, buried the body in a tomb, and the land was named for Icarus. So why did his wings fall apart? Well, scientifically, just basically, they flew apart because the wax melted and he went too high to the sun. Okay, did exactly what his father told him not to. He told him to fly the middle course, just kind of right in the middle. Don't go too high, don't go too low. Sorry. And so if I can go into the analysis, what does this mean? What was the tragic flaw of Icarus? You probably already know. Something we've talked about multiple times. I believe we can summarize it up in just pride, ambition, believing that he could do whatever he wanted to do. Okay? That's what led him to the sun. He thought he was okay. He forgot the wisdom that was given to him, and he just did what he wanted to do. The second analysis question says, what does the story mean by he was flying too high? Now, I'm not looking specifically for it to say that he flew too close to the sun. Okay, that's the physical aspect of it. But the metaphorical, he was flying too high. He was going out of his range, out of his reach. He was doing something that he was not supposed to do. He was flying, and no, it doesn't have to do with drugs either. He was going out of the bounds of what he was supposed to be doing. And that kind of leads to number 3. How could his dad's advice helped Icarus? Well, if he'd have just listened and stayed the middle course, had he just listened and done what the advice of his father was, he wouldn't have died. And so many applications that you can take in your own life. Okay, stop going after things that are unattainable and you shouldn't be going after. Stop being proud and following your own path. Listen to the advice of those that are around you and trying to help you. The Bible, one of the most famous portions in the Bible is pride goeth before, I'm going to mess it up, I always get it mixed up. Pride goeth before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. Okay? That is the story of Icarus in the Bible. And so, again, I wanted to bring this to you. Very short but very meaningful story. And I hope every time you hear the name Icarus, you think, pride goeth before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. Look forward to seeing you guys next week and try to get this done. And we'll see you later.